A few days ago, during an expedition near the Canary Islands in search of sharks, scientists stumbled upon an unexpected discovery. At almost 5,000 meters deep, in the dark waters of the Tonga Trench, a baited camera was deployed to record little-known life forms. The location, considered one of the most remote regions on the planet, has been called the last frontier of Earth due to its isolation and mystery. The mission aimed to attract and record creatures from the deep sea, but what appeared surprised even the most experienced researchers. Amidst legends and rumors about sea monsters, for decades there had been talk of gigantic beings, squid with enormous eyes, bioluminescent creatures, and ancient sharks. Although many attributed such accounts to folklore, the images captured by the camera brought new life to these stories. The equipment, attached to a dead fish, ended up attracting an abyssal anglerfish known as the Black Sea Monster. But soon, something even bigger appeared. A colossal creature with jaws capable of breaking through steel took the bait and left the scientists astonished. Its presence conveyed a mixture of fascination and fear, as if the ancient stories of the oceans had come to life before the lenses. For centuries, sailors have reported encounters with sea monsters, stories that were dismissed as exaggeration or fantasy. However, modern science has proven that some of these legends contain traces of truth. The example of the Kraken, considered a myth until it was filmed in the early 2000s, showed that creatures like the colossal vampire squid, up to 14 meters long, really exist. The recent discovery in the Tonga Trench may be another chapter that brings the popular imagination closer to the reality of the deep sea. This discovery proves something important. The ocean still harbors giants. There is also the frilled shark, an ancient predator that looks more like a sea serpent than a modern fish. With its mouth wide open, 300 needle-like teeth, and an elongated body like an eel, it glides through the water like a memory from the age of dinosaurs. Even rarer is the goblin shark, a deep-sea, pinkish fish with a slingshot-like jaw that projects to capture prey in the blink of an eye. It's so strange that many believe photos of it are fake, but they are not. And when we add to that the world of bioluminescent life, the ocean begins to resemble an alien planet. In the Hadal Zone, where sunlight never reaches, animals do not merely survive, they glow. Entire species have evolved their own internal lights. Jellyfish that pulsed like strobe lights, lanternfish with illuminated abdomens, and anglerfish with luminous lures dangling from their heads like a fishing rod. These lights serve as traps, camouflage, or a form of communication in a world of eternal night. But it doesn't stop there. Some of the strangest encounters remain unexplained. There are records of giant shapes passing rapidly in front of submersible cameras, too fast to be identified. In 2017, an unmanned probe diving in the Mariana Trench recorded what researchers described as a huge gelatinous mass that moved like an animal, not like a current. The images were grainy, inconclusive, but disturbing. And there are also unsettling records of so-called ghost fish, translucent, eyeless creatures that seem almost weightless, floating effortlessly. Some resemble human forms, others seem too large to exist. Divers report fleeting glimpses of enormous, transparent creatures lurking beyond the reach of light. Boneless, featureless, and with behavior that doesn't fit any known species, these sightings remain among the greatest mysteries of marine biology. Another persistent legend is that of the Black Demon of Cortez, a supposed shark-like creature that haunts the waters of Mexico. Witnesses claim it is over 15 meters long, completely black, and silent. No concrete proof has emerged, but sonar signals and destroyed nets keep the mystery alive. And in the waters off Japan, fishermen report sightings of the oarfish, a giant paddlefish with a serpentine body that resembles an underwater dragon. In 2010, an oarfish nearly 5 meters long washed ashore, proving once again that truth and myth often share the same DNA. What unites all these stories is a common thread. We simply don't know what lies down there. The ocean is the largest and least explored part of our planet. More than 80% remains unmapped, and, as technology advances, only now are we beginning to see what generations of sailors feared and folklore hinted at. And in September 2024, when scientists launched a camera into the second deepest ocean trench in the world, the Tonga Trench, they found not only evidence of these legends, they found something worse, something that fought back, the beginning of the mystery. It all began with a question: what really lives in the deepest, coldest, and darkest corners of Earth's oceans? In September 2024, a team of marine researchers from the Minderoo UWA Deep Sea Research Center, in collaboration with Kelpie Geosciences and with partial funding from Inkfish, set out to find the answer. The target, the Tonga Trench in the South Pacific, an isolated cut in the seabed that extends to a depth of more than 10 kilometers, second only to the Mariana Trench. Few dared to explore it. Even fewer returned with answers. But this mission was different. Equipped with next-generation cameras attached to baited descent modules, the scientists devised a simple yet daring plan. Attach the camera to a weight, bait it with the head of a freshly frozen mackerel, and let it sink into the trench. The goal? To record raw, unfiltered images of the strange and secretive life that inhabits the abyss. The bait served a dual purpose. In the depths, food is scarce. Any scent attracts attention. A dead fish is like a beacon in the darkness, attracting scavengers, predators, and sometimes things that science has never seen before. The hope was that by attracting these animals naturally, the camera would record behaviors that no remotely operated vehicle, ROV, or submersible could capture. The modules were designed to withstand unimaginable pressure at depths of over 4,000 meters, where the weight of the water column can crush metal. Equipped with red light, almost invisible to most abyssal creatures, the cameras could film without disturbing their subjects. Every wire, every screw, every flash of light was designed to withstand the impact, but the scientists were unprepared for what they actually recorded. The camera module groaned as it sank beneath the waves, disappearing from sight in seconds. Tethered to its ballast, it began a slow descent into the unknown. On the deck of the research vessel, scientists watched the screens in silence, aware that the equipment was plunging into one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth. At first, sunlight still managed to penetrate, casting a bluish, ghostly glow on the screen. Schools of small fish sped past, oblivious to the mechanical intruder falling into their territory. But within minutes, this light began to fade, swallowed by the overwhelming darkness. At 1,000 meters, the twilight zone, natural light ceased to exist. Life here was rare and strange. Twisted shapes floated like specters. Jellyfish pulsed with electric discharges. An eel, pale as a ghost, glided past the lens before disappearing into the darkness. At 2,500 meters, the midnight zone, the water temperature plummeted to near zero and the pressure rose to more than 250 times what we feel at sea level, enough to implode steel without adequate reinforcement. The mackerel's head hung motionless from its cable, like an offering to forgotten gods. At 4,000 meters, the abyssal plain, shadows and silence reign. No ray of sunlight has ever touched these depths. It's a world older than human history. So dark and so alien it could be another planet. Here, time seems to stand still. Movement is slow, survival demands adaptation, and sometimes brutality. When the camera settled gently on the ocean floor, it stirred up a silent cloud of sediment, obscuring the lens for a few moments. For several seconds, Nothing moved. Only the faint hiss of the sonar and the discreet hum of the machines filled the onboard monitors. Then, something moved. Just beyond the reach of the red lights, a shape drifted by. Slow, heavy, deliberate. It didn't resemble any known fish or squid. No fins, no tentacles. Just a presence, large, watching. The researchers leaned forward, their hearts racing. There was something out there, and they had seen the bait. First contact, shadows in the darkness. At first, nothing but the slow swirl of sediment and the static hum of the live camera feed. The mackerel's head swayed slightly in the current, rocking back and forth under the red glow. Hours passed. Then it happened. The water changed. On the left side of the image, a shadow appeared, immense, deliberate, and it moved without making any sound. The creature didn't swim, but glided, like a submarine covered in skin. There were no flashing lights, no bioluminescent glow announced its presence, only a darkness darker than the darkness all around. The outline was undefined. At first glance, it could be mistaken for a rock being carried by the current, until it stopped right in front of the camera. On board, the scientists froze. One murmured, "What is that?" The shape circled slowly, beyond the range of complete clarity. Then it turned, and the researchers got their first real glimpse. It had a blunt snout, as thick as a tree trunk, with two whitish eyes sunken into its head. The mouth was closed, but the outline of the jaws was unmistakable. Wide, serrated, made for crushing. Its skin looked like ancient leather, rough, dark, speckled like sea rock. It wasn't a giant squid. It wasn't a known shark. It didn't even resemble the grotesque goblin sharks or the fringed gill predators occasionally caught in deep-sea nets. It was something else, something heavier. Then, it did something that no abyssal creature had ever done on recorded footage. It stared directly at the camera. For almost 30 seconds, it remained motionless. A silent duel between machine and monster, and then, without warning, it lunged. The lens was swallowed by darkness. Jaws opened, revealing rows of jagged teeth. The screen shook violently when the creature bit, not the bait, but the camera itself. The metal groaned. For a moment, everything went black. In the control room, no one spoke. The only sound was the low beep of the equipment trying to re-establish the signal. Then, the image flickered on the screen again. Scratched, blurry, and still recording, and the shark was still there. The bite. The image was grainy, distorted by the water, and slightly crooked, but still intact. Against all odds, the camera survived the initial impact. Inside the ship's control room, the crew watched in silence, adrenaline coursing through their veins. No one spoke. No one even moved. The creature was still there. It had released the lens, but not the bait. For a few tense seconds, the only visible sign of life was a thick mass once again crossing the frame. As he slowly turned in front of the lens, the camera captured his entire body. Thick, muscular, and covered in dark, rough skin. He moved like a ghost, heavy, yet with a strange grace, almost without disturbing the water around it. Then it turned again, and its mouth came into play. Slowly, almost ceremonially, it opened. The lower jaw moved in a precise and unsettlingly practiced manner. The inside of the mouth revealed a series of irregular conical teeth, some blunt, others serrated, all embedded in thick pink gums. The creature stood there, its mouth open and facing the camera as if assessing it. Then, without any warning, it attacked again. The screen shook. A metallic rumble echoed through the ship's speakers. This time, the camera wasn't just filming the predator. It was inside it. The image turned to chaos when the lens was swallowed by darkness. Water swirled around the carcass, and something soft, perhaps the creature's tongue, brushed against the lens. The pressure was immense. Every few seconds, rows of teeth scraped against the casing, producing a spine-chilling sound. It was no longer a curious test. It was an attempt to devour it. In the control room, gasps were heard. Someone murmured, "It's trying to eat the camera." Another whispered, "That's the inside of its mouth." No one could look away. The image shook repeatedly, but somehow the hull held firm. The equipment had been designed to withstand the pressure of the depths, but not the jaws of a living submarine. And then it stopped. Suddenly, the pressure ceased. The darkness receded. The camera fell back to the bottom of the pit, viscous and scratched, but still functional. Static clung to the edges of the image, but the vision remained. And the predator was still in the frame. It hovered over the horse's head now, motionless. Then, with terrifying efficiency, it lunged forward and swallowed the entire bait in a single movement. In that instant, the team understood. That creature feared neither sound, light, nor strange objects invading its territory. He had cleverly investigated the camera. He bit twice, each time with a different force. And, in doing so, he revealed something far more unsettling than a new species. Later, upon retrieving the module and downloading the images, the team noticed something chilling. The second bite, the most violent one, almost crushed the camera's outer casing. Had it landed just a few centimeters closer to the core, the entire device would have imploded under the pressure, and they would have lost everything. But the most disturbing discovery wasn't that. It was what they saw in the creature's eyes. By slowing down the recording, frame by frame, it became clear. Before the first attack, she had turned her head slightly, not to inspect the bait, but to look directly at the lens. She wasn't an irrational animal, feeding blindly. She had seen the camera. In the lab, Dr. Jessica Colbass stood motionless as she watched the entire recording. Her face pale, her voice almost inaudible when she finally spoke. "This isn't just a deep-sea predator. This is a pinnacle, something we've never documented before. Not down here, and judging by the way it approached us, it's been watching for a long time." The creature hadn't simply taken the bait. It made a statement. The revelation, the Pacific sleeper shark. When the recording was analyzed frame by frame, the experts began to piece together the puzzle. The size, the behavior, the slow but calculated movements. Everything pointed to a known species, but one rarely seen in this way. The creature that nearly destroyed the camera swallowed the entire mackerel head and slithered through the trench like a prehistoric ghost has been identified as a Pacific Greenland shark, Somniosus pacificus. At first, the team hesitated to believe it. These sharks are among the least understood large predators in the ocean. Their elusive nature, slow movement, and preference for deep, icy waters keep them shrouded in mystery. What made this sighting so surprising wasn't just the recording, it was the location. These sharks are usually found in the North Pacific near Alaska, Canada, and Japan. This encounter occurred thousands of kilometers away, at the bottom of the Tonga Trench in the southern hemisphere. It was more than a rare sighting. It was the first confirmed record of a Greenland shark in the Pacific so far south, and certainly at that depth. The filmed specimen was estimated to be between 3.5 and 3.6 meters long, and notably was female, determined by the absence of claspers near the pelvic fins. A fully developed adult, not a lost juvenile, but an experienced predator patrolling a trench that few humans have dared to explore. Unlike other sharks that rely on speed or aggression, the Pacific Greenland shark is a stealthy hunter. Its body is dense and muscular, lacking a swim bladder. Instead, it maintains buoyancy thanks to a huge, oil-filled liver, which allows it to glide silently along the seabed. It is known that it feeds on fish, squid, octopus, crustaceans, and, occasionally, seals or whale carcasses in the northern waters. What it hunts in the trenches of the South Pacific is still unknown. What differentiates the Greenland shark from the Pacific shark, however, is not only its physiology, it's the way they move. These sharks are slow, with a ghostly and tranquil movement, which makes their sudden attacks, like the one captured in the Tonga Trench images, even more terrifying. Scientists believe the species evolved to conserve energy in cold, food-poor waters, remaining motionless for long periods, waiting for a single explosive strike. But perhaps the most fascinating and unsettling aspect is its longevity. Although no Pacific Greenland shark has ever been precisely dated, its close relative, the Greenland shark, Somniosus microcephalus, can live for over 400 years, making it the longest living vertebrate on Earth. If the Pacific Greenland shark shares even a fraction of that longevity, the animal filmed could be older than most modern nations. And yet, despite their size, strength, and possible age, these sharks remain almost invisible to humans. They prefer the shadows. They rarely emerge. Most images come from deep-sea fishing trawls or bycatch. Seeing one with such clarity and interacting directly with the equipment was unprecedented. This discovery not only rewrites what was known about the species' geographic distribution, but also challenges assumptions about the biodiversity of ocean trenches. These extreme environments, crushing pressure, near-freezing temperatures, absolute darkness, were once thought to be capable of harboring only microorganisms and small scavengers. But the presence of this shark suggests something more complex, a functional and interconnected ecosystem capable of sustaining massive predators at unimaginable depths. Days later, reviewing the images again, Dr. Jessica Kolbus reflected on the significance of the record. "This isn't just a sighting," she said. "It's evidence that these sharks may be far more widely distributed and adaptable than we ever imagined. And if they're here, what else could be?" In the scientific community, the images have sparked renewed calls for exploration and conservation of the deep trenches. The Pacific Greenland shark is currently classified as near threatened by the IUCN. Due to its slow growth and low reproductive rate, it is especially vulnerable to deep-sea fishing and habitat degradation. Encounters like this show how much we still ignore about its distribution, habits, and role in the ocean's hidden food web. But beyond the biology and the urgency of conservation, the footage from the Tonga Trench revealed something more, something rare. It reminded humanity that Earth still holds secrets, that even in the age of satellites and artificial intelligence, there are places we barely touch, creatures we barely know, and one of them just looked at a camera and bit it. Consequences and broader impact. The discovery in the Tonga Trench not only shook the marine biology community, it resonated strongly with scientific institutions and the general public. Days after the images were released, major news outlets reported on the event, generating headlines about monster sharks, ghost predators, and aliens from the deep. But behind the sensationalism, serious conversations were taking place behind closed doors. Oceanographers, marine biologists, and conservationists were stunned by the implications. The Tonga Trench, once considered one of the most unexplored regions of the Pacific, has suddenly become a hotspot for marine mysteries. If a Pacific Greenland shark, previously thought to be restricted to northern latitudes, has been confirmed at these depths, what other top predators might be lurking in silence? The event also reinforced the urgency of funding deep-sea exploration. Despite covering more than 70% of the planet's surface, over 80% of the oceans remain unmapped and unexplored. Most of what we know comes from satellite imagery or shallow dives. The deepest places on Earth, trenches like Tonga, Mariana, and Kermadec, remain vast frontiers where nature dictates its own rules in total darkness, and with climate change, underwater mining, and overfishing threatening even the most remote ecosystems, the need for scientific knowledge is now critical. We cannot protect what we do not understand, Dr. Kolbas said in a later statement. This encounter was extraordinary, but it is also a warning. These species may be ancient, but they are not invincible. Meanwhile, the camera, the same one that survived the predator's jaws, is now on display at a marine institute in Perth. A battered artifact covered in barnacles, it tells a story of resilience, curiosity, and wonder. Visitors gather around it, not only to admire its survival, but to ask the big question, what else is out there? Because that's what this story truly evoked. Astonishment. In a world obsessed with speed, progress, and control, this brief moment in the depths reminded us that some corners of the planet remain beautifully and frighteningly unknown. If something so massive, ancient, and mysterious can exist right here on Earth, what else might be watching us, waiting for the right moment to be seen? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Until next time.